Good morning. I'm Ross from Smith Property Accountants, and I'm going to go through a major issue if you're looking at Airbnb or short-term accommodation. It's the GST issue and trying to explain what that is. So a lot of people, when we talk about the GST issue, they think it's the risk that if you go over the GST threshold, 60,000 in any 12-month period, that you're going to have to register for GST and you're going to have to pay GST on the rent received from Airbnb. That is a slight issue, but that is not the major issue that we're worried about. That is not the big problem and the big issue with it. The big issue is that if we do that, we have a family, so we have a holiday home. We've owned it for years and years and years, and we've purchased it really cheap. We go over the GST threshold, we GST register, we then get to claim the GST back on the purchase price. Yay, we get some GST back. Can be good, can be exciting, can be a big refund. And then we decide actually after a while, we don't want to do this Airbnb anymore. Well, then we have to deregister for GST and we have to pay GST back at fair market value. Fair market value could be a whole lot more, so you could end up paying back a whole lot more GST. I'll share my screen and we'll go through it's based on a real life situation. I had a chat this morning, but it's slightly different numbers, slightly made up numbers to give you the idea. So this person has two properties in one entity. They're currently looking at Airbnb these properties. So if they go over the 60,000, which it sounds like they're going to do very quickly if they do Airbnb them, then they'll have to GST register this entity. They're both in the same entity. So that is the sort of things that we're looking around, is the entities and things like that. So if they GST register now and they do them both Airbnb, one property cost 450,000, one 1.15. We would get the GST back 59,000 and 150,000 would get it back about 209,000 GST refund. That's pretty exciting. We all like GST refunds. We like getting some money back. That sounds great. Then we've got the issue, say that after a while, one of the properties, they stop GST, they stop Airbnb and decided actually it's going to rent them long term. And actually maybe they decide to sell both the properties. So either selling them or deregistering or stopping the Airbnb or short term could create this problem. Then we have to pay back GST at fair market value. Say that these properties were bought 20, 30 years ago. They're already worth 1 million and 3 million now. So if after a while we deregister for GST, maybe a year or two later, we're then going to have to pay back 521,000 of GST. So it's great. We get to claim the GST back, the 209,000, but maybe when we stop a sell, we're going to have to pay back 521. The yellow square, 313,000 GST cost. And this is a pretty real example. I've made up the numbers slightly, but it's a basic example that's happening, that this person could be losing 300,000 in value straight away. And that's just up to market value now. Say they keep this going for a while and the properties go up a lot more. They go up to $2 million after years and up to $5 million after years. They could end up with a huge amount of GST to pay when they stop Airbnb, stop the short-term accommodation, or they sell the property. So they could end up with a huge GST cost. Getting the 200,000 back, exciting, but having to pay maybe 900,000 later. So this is a huge issue. And this is what we're worried about with GST. Paying GST on the rent, fine. We don't like paying GST. It's not great, but it's small fry. This can be major. It can be really huge. There is some options around it. Potentially, we can repay less GST. There can be some tricks around it, but IRD are looking at changing that. And also, we can use some different structures, different ways of doing it, especially if we do it at the start. If we try and restructure later, you have to look at what is the commercial reason for that restructure, and often that will be tax avoidance. So as soon as you're thinking short-term accommodation, Airbnb, consider GST, and yeah, watch out for this big issue. It is really major, and worth having a proper meeting, getting proper advice on this. So hopefully you found that issue, and hopefully it's highlighted what that huge GST issue is. Thanks a lot for your time. Bye.